That's why I asked. All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order for July 14th, 2020, and it is 6:31 p.m. And if you'll all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Hodges is going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody, and I want to let the people, if there's anybody out there live streaming us right now, we have all 5 board members are present, superintendent is present, director of business services is present, administrative secretary is present, our athletic director from the high school is present, and our director of maintenance is present, as well as our IT director. And we do have 2 folks on the call. That'll be our director of educational services, Mrs. Hopkins, and I don't remember who the other one was. Oh, 7 on.
I want to know who they are. We got 7.
I believe our principals might be.
Okay. All right. So hearing that, we're gonna kick it off, and if we can get an adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for July 2020 as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, item number 2 is our public hearing. It's the, going to be. Okay, the public meeting is scheduled for tonight, July 14th, and it is currently 6:33 p.m. for the purpose of public review of the fiscal year 2021 annual expenditure budget. And this meeting is now open. So if you want to.
Sure. Absolutely. On June 16th, I proposed this budget to all of you, and you proposed it that evening. It has been posted on ADE's website as well as our website for public review, comments, questions. And as of this moment, we have not had any inquiries about the budget. There has been no changes since June 16th when we reviewed it and approved it then.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Aaron? Okay, we can take action on that then.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the governing board of the Wickenburg Unified School District Number 9, having held a public hearing on July 14th, 2020, hereby approve the fiscal year 2021 annual expenditure budget as presented. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Public meeting for the purpose of the public review of the fiscal year 2021 annual expenditure budget is now closed at 6:34 p.m. All right, item number 3, informational and discussion items. We've got a presentation. This is response to the COVID-19 exposure presented by Mrs. Debbie Hodgkiss, Mr. Matt Johnson, and Mr. Jim Mitchell. And Debbie, are you on there?
I'll tell you, Mark, if you can barely hear what's going on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and we hear you and you don't hear us. Is that correct?
No, I hear you.
Oh, okay.
Well, good evening, President Malio, Dr. Remendini, and members of the board. I was asked to present with my colleagues Matt Johnson and Jim Missel the action steps for a possible COVID-19 exposure in the district. So the first thing that we want to do is maintain a safe and healthy environment. We plan to do this by pre-screening employees and students, practice proper hand washing procedures, encouraging social distancing, using masks when social distancing is not feasible, disinfecting and cleaning workspaces, and just to promote a policy of disclosure of symptoms if somebody arises with symptoms, and encourage that all of our employees and students to stay home when they're sick. But if we do have a suspected COVID-19 infection for our employees, policy GBGCB grants the superintendent the authority to take reasonable and lawful measures to protect students and staff members from the transmission of communicable diseases. So if the district is notified that we have an employee, a volunteer, contractor, or subcontractor, or any other adult individual who has been diagnosed, exposed to, or has symptoms of COVID-19, then we will follow the next steps. And there's approximately 10. So first of all, we will immediately isolate the individual, and then we'll send them home. We will determine if other employees and students have had close contact with the individual so that we can make an informed decision regarding our next steps. And close contact is defined by CDC as 15 minutes within 6 feet of an infected person. We would investigate the matter telephonically by interviewing the individual, and we would assess the possible exposure to include who may have had contact with that person and what sites or areas would need to be temporarily closed and sanitized. To determine who, after we determine who, we would need to notify those individuals of possible or potential COVID-19 exposure. And we would need to maintain confidentiality of the infected individual, which is required by the American Disabilities Act. If someone was exposed or potentially exposed, then we would allow that person to self-monitor their own health and self-quarantine. Of course, we would inform them. And then the district would also make a determination if they could assign telework to any individuals who have been exposed, or if the employee is unable to work due to the fact that they are sick, then they could possibly be paid by emergency sick leave under the Family First COVID Response Act. The district is obligated to record the cases of COVID-19, and then if appropriate, we would notify appropriate health officials as long as it complies with applicable privacy laws. And then Matt will share with you regarding a student exposure.
For student exposures, we're going to refer back to steps 1 through 5 above, but more focused on the schools. The staff's immediately going to notify a parent or the emergency contacts to pick that student up, or if they seem to be very symptomatic or in distress, immediately call 911. Staff will also interview the parents and discuss exposure. If for instance, they decline, then investigations stop and we presume that they are positive and we treat it as such. Exposure to COVID-19 should be treated as a student records subject to FERPA. Given the current health emergency, the district should apply the FERPA HIPAA exceptions and disclose information related to a positive case so that potentially affected can self-monitor and self-quarantine. At minimum, the district should disclose information identifying the sites frequented by the students. If a student is suspected to have COVID-19 exposure, the district should notify the appropriate parties of the possible exposure, the media not being one of them. And The district may also provide notice of appropriate parties if a parent or other member of a student household has suspected COVID-19 exposure, so they may. So basically what that means is we're notifying the appropriate parties, not the media, but like the family, so that they can, at that point, determine whether they've been exposed and they should quarantine. The basics of the notification is it must not contain personal information. Should only include information as relevant to allow those with potential exposure to self-monitor and self-quarantine. Only provide notice to appropriate parties. The district may inform appropriate health officials as long as it complies with applicable privacy laws. Notification should include information about the sites frequented by the individual during the incubation period and while the exhibiting symptoms. The notification should include information on what the district is doing in regards to industrial hygiene, whether at the site and how long, if it's closed and for how long. And the notification should encourage those individuals that may have been exposed to COVID-19 to self-monitor and self-quarantine if appropriate. Debbie?
All right, Jim, would you like to share the cleaning and disinfecting?
Good evening, board president and board members. That's how I was taught in my younger days. Cleaning and disinfecting. And it started this last week from this episode. Okay, the first thing, and I was the one in charge of it, they called me. I went up there, locked the doors, posted a sign, do not enter, and locked it up. CDC says for 24 hours, you should not enter that infected area. So I did. After 24 hours, I'm the one that cleaned it. And I had rubber gloves, rubber mask, and I had a choice of wearing a protective suit, and I did not. So we do have some ordered for my guys to wear in the future. Then I went through and sprayed disinfectant, and on all surface areas, it has to sit for 10 minutes, and then you wipe it down. So everything was sprayed, any type of metal, windows, everything. The cushions, I sprayed the floors, everything. I did all of that. The infectant we're using is from Brady. That's our company we use. It's a lemon disinfectant. It does a good job. So it works fine. Then after that, I did the doorknob. I did all light fixtures, anything that somebody could have touched. I disinfected the media center, the administration building, the Moore lab. I disinfected the bathrooms, cleaned and sanitized the bathrooms, emptied all trash receptacles, did everything so it was nice and clean, and then vacuumed. And then after I got that done, as I was doing that, I also opened the windows so we get some circulation through there. Air conditioning was not running at that time. And then after that, after it's been cleaned and disinfected, I notified Debbie about it, or I would notify Mark or Matt that it's okay to return to use the facility again. And so, and then below I said, if we need larger places for people to move, there's some central areas we could move larger groups, like the gym, the media centers, and that type of thing. So that's what I'm working on. So we have to move kids or staff. Okay?
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. Oh, I didn't touch that. That's not mine.
Do you have any questions?
I don't. Anybody have any questions?
I have one. Debbie, you mentioned a policy at the beginning. Can you tell me what that was?
Crickets. It has four letters.
I know.
It's just so that's five. Say that again.
Policy GCGCB. Says it grants the superintendent the authority to take reasonable and lawful measures to protect students and staff members from the transmission of communicable diseases.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
One question, Debbie, when you started, you talked about confidentiality, and you mentioned ADA. Did you really mean ADA or HIPAA? I don't understand how that was.
All right, so the information that we have from the trust, it states, the American with Disabilities Act, Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, excuse me, I didn't mention all of those, should be considered in any district disclosure of possible COVID-19 infection.
Okay, yeah, because 88 seemed to be the only one I heard you actually say there, so.
Yeah, I made a mistake.
There's the others.
Okay, my question is, so you're saying we actually have somebody on campus that has COVID?
No, you do, for me, I was the only one there. They had
No, I mean, that's why we did all this, because there was someone that had it, that was on
They
campus.
suspected somebody that did, and they called me,
Okay,
and then I went up there and locked everything down.
okay.
Yeah, I was confused with that too, because this whole presentation started out as if, when it's gonna, if it happens or whatever, but then when Jim came up there, we got more of a presentation that we had.
So we got notified of the suspected,
Possible COVID case, we don't know for sure.
Possible, okay, because I've had, yeah, so it's possible.
So ultimately, that's what you'll use going forward, once we're back on campus, if this happens again.
Yeah, so when they call me, like Debbie will call me, or Barbara will call me, I will go up there and secure the building and put notes up there that say, and you notify the principals too.
Mr. President, may I make a statement to the governing board? Just a statement of clarification. This presentation was to provide information to the board on how we would respond to potential exposure to COVID-19. I think the board does know that we've had more than one incident where we have suspected that somebody may have been exposed to COVID-19 and then been present on one of our campuses. So we will respond in this manner anytime something like this happens. The presentation was to provide some understanding on the part of the board that as these things occur, whether or not students are on campus, but even when students come on campus, we do have a process that we follow that is under the guidelines of all of the ABC groups to make sure that we do what is correct and does not violate anybody's privacy.
okay,
Very good, thank you.
I just have a question, and this would deal with when we have students back on campus. How would we handle one, say, a student, and you find out that the student's not presenting any indications, but a parent or somebody in the household is infected? How do you treat that student? I mean, how do you do that? How do you handle that?
So according to the guidelines that we received, that student should self-quarantine for the appropriate amount of time and consider being tested.
Okay, so if you find out about it and the student is in class, for example, then you pull them out, send them home. What? That's what you do?
Debbie, if you don't mind, I'll attempt to answer this. At this, and I don't want to be vague, I want to be very clear. If we have a person who is, if there's a suspicion that somebody has been exposed to coronavirus, we want to separate them from everybody else. And if I'm going to address the question that you had, Mr. Alexander, was a student comes to school, is sitting in a classroom, perhaps you get a call from a parent saying, I need to remove my child for possible exposure. Then I think that the questions start needing to happen, is that child potentially exposing everybody else? And then we would enact our processes for notification then at that point in time. As far as how deep that goes or what choices parents make for notifying us of what's going on in the home that may be separate, it's a little bit unclear at this time on how far that will go. But we would respond to remove the students and do the notification so parents can make.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more of like, you know, the parent didn't notify you that they had been positive, and you find out through another whether it's, you know, some neighbor with a child, going, hey, did you know this person and they're sending their kid to school still, or, you know, whatever. If that's how you would react at that one, if that was, that's what I said when you pull a child out of the classroom or what.
Yeah, our communication would be with the adult in that situation, to verify or to ask
Okay.
questions about what the response is.
Okay.
Right, I think if I hear it, it's not gonna be from a parent, it's gonna be from another parent or a kid going,
Yeah,
hey, mom has COVID.
yeah,
And so I think where you're coming from is then we can dive in and verify with the parents. But I think,
that's kind of what I was.
I think that's a far more realistic, scenario is that we get that information from another parent or more likely a kid. And I think, at that point, we go right to, number two and immediately notify or verify with the parent. And if that's the case, we get them out as quickly as we can.
Okay. Thank you.
That's probably, when we do, have schools in attendance, that's something to make aware of students, that when, now, they may not think of it, that somebody in the family, somebody in the household may have it, they're gonna go to school, because they don't think they have it. And it may be an awareness thing that we need to bring to the attention to all staff and students themselves. Say, hey, you know, if you've got somebody in the family not doing well, we bring it to our attention or not attend school or like I said, quarantine, whatever they may need to do.
Hey Debbie, I have a question.
Yes.
Based on what Randy was just, talking about, so if that were to occur, before that occurs, are we, do we have some kind of a communication that will be going out to all the households before we start and say, hey, if you think something's going on in your house, don't send your kid or let us know or something like that? Something like that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have, part of the reopening plan includes education for our families as well as our teachers and students. So getting parents educated on signs, symptoms, what they need to be looking for in their kids each day. So that's the screening process. And then assuring them that, you know, the contact tracing is private. We won't relinquish any names, you know, and building that trust and that relationship with our parents. So, and helping them understand the importance of it as well, because that's one of the ways to battle this virus is to do that contact tracing so we can quarantine the virus and keep it from spreading. Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you so much.
And you plan on having kind of like when the students come back, that there would be a, NDOT kind of a thing that educates them on the same type of thing?
Yes. So as well as with all of our hygiene, you know, everything that I stated at the beginning about maintaining healthy environments and what students need to do, it goes right along with the symptoms of that virus. So students can self-monitor, if you want to put it that way, and they understand what it's about. One thing we hope parents do not do is discover their child is sick in the morning and then hand them some Tylenol and send them off to school because that took the fever down. Things like that. You know, we want them to be aware of the seriousness of the condition and keep their kiddos at home. And then we need to provide those remote learning opportunities so the student is not missing all instruction while they're home. We can continue that remotely.
Very good. Anybody else have a question for Debbie? Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that. And Matt and Jim, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, so we're going to recognitions and proclamations, and I would just like to take a moment to recognize our awesome administration who was very much involved in the task force still involved in the task force to get a reopening plan established and what it's gonna look like, and obviously all the things we just heard about is all part of that. There is not one harder thing that I can think of in my 12 years on this board that we're having to deal with. The most unpopular thing is this, because you're not gonna please everybody because you got people on both sides of the ball. And whichever side of the ball you're on doesn't make any difference. Your side's gonna be right. But what we're doing here on this end is we are trying to keep a whole population of our kids and our staff as safe as we know how to do. And we're using data, we're using guidance from the CDC, Arizona Department of Health Services, Arizona Department of Education. And so we're doing all of these things in the best interest of our district, not in the best interest of the people sitting in this room tonight. It's in the best interest of our whole district, for you and for all of our kids and our staff. Everybody's important to us, and so we're going to act accordingly when the time is right. And so bear with us. Some of the decisions we've made in this room over the years have not been pleasant, but this is one that's going to be the hardest one we've made. So I just wanted to put that out there. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to say?
Yes. I wanted to recognize our brand new superintendent for all of her hard work in this, because it can't be easy to be in the situation as it is, but then to be brand new to a community in a district. So, thank you, Dr. Rondini. I know it's not easy.
Jump into the fire.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
But, I was gonna recognize all of those members of the task force, that Joe's already recognized. I would like to, recognize the teachers who are out there, now planning on getting back to school and planning a remote learning, more rigorous than what we had in the spring, a remote learning, and at the same time, have the possibility of shortly maybe returning back into the classroom and having to, think that through as well. And, not having to plan getting back into the classroom at the same time they're trying to do remote learning. So I just like to recognize all the teachers out there.
Very good. Anybody else? All right. Thank you for that. Item number 4 is call to the public, and as you might guess, we have no public in here with the social distancing. So now we move on to the consent agenda. Any board members need anything pulled before we take action on that consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, we get a motion to move that forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items for July 14, 2020 as submitted.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, item 6 are the action items, and the first one is a request for approval of the financial reports presented by Mrs. Erin Johnson.
Good evening again. As you can see, we've trended very well this year. In our M&O expenditures, we are about 10% less spent year to date than we were last year. And I attribute that to a few things, not only the 4-day week where I presented a couple of board meetings ago, the savings that we've had, but also obviously COVID did help with some of those expenses this year as well. And then as far as capital goes, we are well below where we were year to date last year, but as I've indicated before, we didn't follow through on all of the capital projects that we had planned the last fiscal year. So this next year, expect to see that budget be spent more. So we are trending well. These numbers will shift slightly as we go through the encumbrance period, and potentially shift some of the expenditures to some grant funds and various other yearly journal entries that we do, at this time of year. So at this time, our budget balances are very positive. I don't expect any surprises, and we are in compliance.
Beautiful. Thank you, Aaron. Anybody have any questions for Aaron, or move right along into a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the financial report as submitted.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion also carries. Item B is the approval of the request for quote RFQ for the Festival Foothills Design Build Renovation Project.
I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk about this because it's just another step in the right direction to get that school repaired. This evening, what I'm asking for you to approve is the award to Low Mountain, as well as approve the design fees and the pre-construction fees that were outlined. We did go through a negotiation process to get to these figures. I feel comfortable and confident in them. At a future meeting, I will have Low Mountain come and present to you, and at that time, then you will approve the actual project, the construction, what they're proposing to do to fix it, and the cost associated with that at that time.
Do you have a question for Aaron on that?
I know the process was outlined in that evaluation summary, so I don't know if there are any other questions on that. Pretty detailed, but
Yeah, I just a comment, as I was reading this, and I looked at the chart before I read the whole, thing, I was, Low Mountain would have been my choice. So I'm glad that they're the ones that won out.
good.
That
I'm
worked
glad
well.
to hear that.
All right, if we can get a motion on that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the RFQ 2023 or 21 for Festival Foothills Design Build Renovation Project.
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? That motion also carries. Thank you. Item C, action item, first reading of policy GCKA, professional staff telecommuting. We've all asked Dr. Remendini about that and on our phone calls, I would assume. All right. So then we've got item D, action item, request for approval of the Wickenburg Unified School District Remote Learning Plan. Do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, Mr. President and members of the board, thank you for, your attention to this, action item this evening. This item is being presented to you in response to, the governor's executive order to delay in-person learning until, after August 17th. As you all know, our, calendar begins on August 3rd. Your action tonight then helps us, if you approve remote learning to begin that day, it prevents us from having to readjust school calendars, attendance requirements, and possibly making adjustments to student attendance days. So we appreciate your consideration for allowing us to move forward with remote learning beginning as planned on August 3rd.
Anybody have questions?
I do. As, like, this last week's news, they're telling everybody right now that, August 17th is a moving target, as we are pretty much assumed that was. There, a lot of the news, hearing that a lot of the valley school districts are looking at longer term remote learning phase. Have we looked at anything in that, or is it just right now,
Well,
looking at the 17th?
I apologize for interrupting, but that's just getting over the topic of where we're at. What we're doing right now, Randy, is just making sure that we're giving the district permission that we're going to do digital learning or remote learning starting on August 3rd, which is our calendar, our original ratified calendar that we did. And that's what they're looking for today. As far as the rest of past August 17th. That's gonna come at a future date. So we're gonna sit down and assemble and talk more about that.
I just have a quick question. Do we have all the computers available for all kids to go from? In the hotspot?
You wanna take that one, Jeremy?
Sure. We don't have enough Chromebooks for every student. We're still waiting on some confirmation on the Weller grant, and what that funding looks like. We will have Chromebooks for every student, but that's a future, event. So right now, we're looking at basically the same type of process that we had at the end of last year of prepping the Chromebooks and, figuring out how we're gonna distribute them so that students in need have a device. That's likely going to be, at least one or two per family, depending on the number of kids. If there are a lot of students in a family, it would be more. But it would be very similar to what we did, during the school closure at the end of last year. Although this pandemic, school closure is just delayed face-to-face. So we're gonna follow kind of the same.
I just wanted to make a comment, if you don't mind. And you'd have to say the number that we handed out, but it wasn't near the amount that we had available.
Yeah.
Correct? We didn't even come close to the amount that we have available.
Yes, we have around 900 Chromebooks, and now we have close to 1,000 actually. At that time, we had about 900. We passed out 400. And so there are some that if we need to use them, we will pull them out and we will use them, but they are strapped in, zip tied into carts or filing cabinets or what have you. And so we probably won't use every Chromebook that we have available, but if there is a student in need and it means that I have to tear apart a cart in order to get them a Chromebook, I will tear apart a cart to get them a Chromebook. That's going to be the last resort. But we have right around 1,000 total devices right now, which is really exciting. It gets us really close, much closer than we've ever been to being one.
Okay, and so, I mean, this is probably off topic then as well. So, I won't ask that.
What was it about the hotspots and stuff?
Well, it was about, I know there were, Chromebooks that we didn't get back. And I wondered if we ever got them back.
We still have some Chromebooks that are out, and because we are starting this process again, a lot of those students are going to be using them again on August 3rd. And so we shifted our focus from basically trying to hound people to get these Chromebooks back in to getting ready for dispersing them again. We know where they are, we know who has them, and they will be using them again for starting August 3rd. So it just it changed our focus, but we haven't lost any, and we haven't had any that were damaged beyond repair even, which is very good.
And then the other thing, again, is, we're aware of who is not going to be able to have Wi-Fi and not going to be able to use it from.
We have some of that information. We're using the information we gathered at the end of last year to kind of start this process that gives us a really good starting point, because we've already communicated, we already know who doesn't have it. And there will be opportunities for them. We don't really honestly yet know what that looks like, but there will be opportunities.
Thank you.
Susan?
Yes. A couple things. So I know if there's parents and whatnot listening, they might not understand what the remote learning plan looks like and how it's different from the spring. I know one of the things outlined was related to grading. We will be grading students on remote learning. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. When do you expect that we will actually get site plans for the schools, start to get that programming information out there for families that want to know, hey, my kid's in 6th grade, what are they doing at the middle school versus is a more sort of overarching plan or more detailed information.
I'm happy to answer that question, and I do want to provide just a statement of clarity that remote learning plan that we have in place and that we've been working on literally every waking moment since we knew we were going to delay the start of school, looks very different and will look very different than what we did in the spring. What we did in the spring was a response to an emergency, and we know that that did not meet the standards, the high standards that we have for our students, our staff, and our community. And so we want to fix those, but those things take some time, some thought, and actually do require leaders of the districts and the schools, most of whom who returned to work yesterday, and our teachers who have not yet returned to work. So we're collecting data and taking input from all of those who participated in remote learning as it looked in the spring to update our expectations and update what does remote learning look like, because it is not just sitting in front of a computer for a few hours a day, but it's how can we put those plans in place that ensure equity among all students having access to high quality learning, whether it's via computer or some type of packet or community activity that we provide guidance to. We have been, again, in response and hopeful that the board approves our start date and continues to ratify our start date to remain August 3rd. We have been working behind the scenes and hope to have some initial communication out to families as early as Thursday. We do have a draft of a plan starting with K-5 with 6-8 being started this afternoon to provide a few more details and some examples, knowing and hoping that we will be allowed to grade, that the teachers are the ones that are actually going to dig deep into the actual standards that are expected for each grade level. What does the content look like, and what are the appropriate activities, and how do we get those out? So yes, we're working behind the scenes. We've got an initial communication coming out before the end of this week, and then we will continue to update and provide details as that's out over the next few weeks as teachers start returning to work.
And I know you worked on a communication plan this week with Valerie. Are we going to be surveying families again?
At this time, there's not a plan to survey families again. What we hope that they do is take the information that we provide through the communication that will go out, as well as our other platforms for providing input to us to let us know of concerns. Part of the communication plan did include a commitment to continuously updating and reviewing our website, taking a look at it from an outsider's perspective so that people know where to find the information that they're looking for, so that we can update that in real time based on how that happens, as well as the individual school sites. They kind of flesh those out. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions that, and maybe it's just the way I'm reading, but I can't understand exactly. For example, on the table where you're talking about the time for classes or for the day or what, for example, you say a minimum for a 9 through 12 is 20 minutes a day or 120 minutes total. Can you put a little more detail to that for me so I understand what it's trying to say?
Yeah, so in using your example of 9th through 12th grade, that would be 20 minutes per day for their 6 classes. So a total of 120 minutes a day of engagement. What the committee is working on and focusing on this right now is these were our guidelines in the spring, again, as we responded to an emergency. As we're looking to enhance and expand our remote learning options, that doesn't include just computer work, but we have a lot of backfilling to do. How can we support families who are supporting their students working remotely outside of just what's in front of a computer?
Okay.
Okay.
Because I mean, this is 20, and I guess that's 20 minutes
Per class.
per class.
Right.
So if you had 6 classes, 120 minutes, and that's the minimum. Okay. Because I know, like, you reading the virtual academies, you know, and they're 7 hours a day is their requirement for, you know, doing stuff. So this just seems like a little bit short to me. The reason I was asking. Another question I had was, where is it? Oh, on the special education page, it says, you know, let me get to that part there, page 16. Page 16. Okay, top of the page. No? Must be a different 16. Maybe it's the actual 16. Yeah, okay, the 16 in the document, not, or numbered pages, number 16, not the 16th page on your PDF file, or whatever that is, okay. The top there, the bullets, then it says, the basic guidelines and, opportunities are based on the following core beliefs. And then affirm that all students can achieve growth in all, capacities. Learning opportunities should occur 24/7 and will be tracked. Now, who's tracking for 24/7? It's a question. I mean, I know you don't have teachers going to be, you know, engaging them for 24/7. Is 24/7 really a realistic number in there, or am I misreading that whole thing?
Could I answer that?
Please.
Okay, so when we work with our students with special needs who have IEPs, there are many times in remote learning that the parent is that acting teacher and observing and working towards those goals. So a child's goals could include eating. I mean, there could be an eating goal for a child with severe enough needs. And that can happen. It doesn't have to happen within the parameters of a school day. It can happen at any time that that parent is working towards that goal. And so the parent can track that time that that child is working toward a goal. And the teachers can provide the goals, provide activities, but it's not necessarily the teacher the parent's a partner, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They're a partner in the progress of that student in order to meet those goals. And that's why that 24/7, it doesn't have a boundary.
Okay, so the parent then has, I don't know, if you have to have some kind of tracking form or something that has to be filled out.
And they go, when a parent meets with the IEP team, they discuss those goals and the accomplishments of those goals. So it's not like necessarily a minute by minute tracking. Some parents may do that. It's not required, but it gives them that opportunity should occur. So they can occur throughout the day. It doesn't have to work on, again, the school hours for a child to work on their goals.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else think of anything else?
Not directly to this, I have a question, another question about the remote learning, but it's about the, I'll just ask it, and if it's not appropriate, you can tell me no. I'm just curious as to tracking the virtual academy, you know, if there's any signups or anything for the virtual academy more than what we, you know, seen in the past, if they're taking advantage of that. Anybody know?
Yeah, I know that there have been a number of enrollments that have moved from our brick and mortar schools, House Bianca, Vulture Peak Festival, to online. They've been utilizing the new online registration portal, which is really great. But because of that, I see a lot of that.
Okay.
And so I can tell you that they have, but I can't tell you what it compares to in past years, because this is the first year that we've had online registration for the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that we have had a number of students that have moved to the virtual academy.
Okay.
To be fully online.
Okay. So they're trending in that direction.
They're taking advantage of the opportunity.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I have one more thing I didn't think of earlier, and it just dawned on me. Teachers, obviously weren't prepared at all in March for what we went through with teaching remotely. Do we have specific plans for preparing teachers for, you know, remote teaching? Because it's very different than being in a classroom.
We have started that process. We have started finding resources that might be available to us and utilizing what teachers did learn and filling in those gaps and how we could do that. Yes.
Okay.
It's not finalized yet.
Can we utilize Zoom once,
Google Hangouts. Because we're Chromebooks, it's all built in.
One thing I'd like to add, I do apologize for talking about, you know, what farther in the future we're looking at, but, this in itself, a lot for, as firm-based, looking at, you know, where we're looking for social and emotional learning for the kids and that, not just, you know, looking at just the remote learning, but what other aspects are being looked at with those students is what they're going through. So I do like the way the program is set up, plan in place, right?
I agree. Good. Anybody else? Entertain a motion if you're ready.
Okay, I got it. I'll make a motion to approve the Wickenburg Unified School District plan to begin the 2020-21 school year on August 3rd, utilizing remote learning.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, now we move into item 7, which is informational items. That would be items for future agendas.
I don't-
Anything else that you wanted to? Yeah.
This isn't an item for the agenda, but I just wanted to confirm that next time we're at 5:30.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, this is the last 6:30 meeting that we're aware of at this point in time as far as schedules go. So starting August, we're 5:30.
Do we know if we're gonna have any other meetings between now and August 18th? Do we know that now? No, maybe.
That'd be a surprise. That'll be like the day before, okay?
Probably.
Maybe that.
Minimum 24 hours.
Minimum 24 hours.
That's right.
Right. Okay, so item B, announcements and calendar, and we can move on to the end of the closing of the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:23.